Okay, guys. What's that voice say? Yeah, okay, don't get it. Okay, the most embarrassing road deaths in history. Death. I have ice in my mouth right now. Deaths in history. I chat history. Go subscribe to him, hit him a like. Let's get right into it.
Embarrassing royal deaths.
Louis
This is Louis III, and this is his dad, Louis II, King of West Francia, also known as the Kingdom of the Franks. Hey Frank. Hey Frank. Louis II here is renowned for being a very peaceful and very loving ruler for his very short 2-year reign between the years of 877 and 879. And now, he's dead, which is even more peaceful. Now, Louis III is the king-to-be at the ripe old age of 16. But since his parents married in secret before he was slopped out, his claim to the throne is being questioned. Now, in order to keep things civil, Louis had struck a deal with his younger brother to rule together. And with that agreement, West Francia...
So it's like a... You know how in the beginning of the Roman Empire, there were 2 kings. It's kind of like that.
Was split in 2. Okay, this is my half, and there's yours. Fine by me. My side has the Xbox. Louis III got the north, and his brother, Carloman II, got the south. Together, the 2 brothers fought off any would-be usurpers from East Francia who contested their reign. Battles were fought for over a year with some back and forth, but ultimately ended in a loss, and a portion of their kingdom was ceded to the east. But while East Francia celebrated its victory, a distant threat loomed over the horizon. Those dang Vikings were showing up in 881 and began to pillage the village and plunder asunder. However, East Francia, still riding their high, managed to kick the Vikings shit in. Not wanting to sail their ships home in shame, the Vikings instead tried their luck with West Francia. Bad move. They would soon learn that 2 kings were better than Vikings. Louis and Carloman went on the offensive and took the invaders by surprise. Together, the brother armies slaughtered the Vikings, cutting down around 9,000 men in the clash. This victory was absolutely huge for the 2 young monarchs, who were praised by both Western and Eastern Frankish kingdoms. Now keep in mind that both kings were teenagers, so the ego trip was insane. That being the case, Louis took to finding himself a queen to produce an heir.
It was crazy how young the people in power back in the day were.
And to cement his legacy.
Alexander the Great, he was like 25 when he conquered, like, I think most, if not half the world.
Louis decided to pursue love in 882 and ended.
Let's see. Majesty, King of France, straight AF, 6'9", whatever you want. Just the king looking for his queen. I killed the Vikings. I have money and land. Please swipe right.
Quite literally pursuing a potential partner. In a bout of hopefully consensual horseplay, the young maiden fled from the eager monarch on horseback. In a bout of hopefully consensual horseplay, the young maiden fled from the eager monarch on horseback to her father's house.
Why are you running?
Louis, I don't think it was very calmly hunting down his love interest, ended up completely conking his dome on the top of a low doorway. That's certainly one way.
Well, that's a Looney Tunes
way to get head. And since he had yet to sow his seed, his younger brother was left to rule on his own. Well, he died 2 years later after being accidentally stabbed by his servant during a hunting trip. Bummer. It's stories like this that make you realize just how stupidly fragile we all are. Just like that, a family lineage is cut short. Imagine if your great-great-great-great-grandmother fell in the shower, completely erasing the possibility of your existence.
Is this an ad?
Poor guy probably didn't even know who she was. But he could have, with the thing, as long as you can enter something.
I forgot what it is. I already did an ancestry test.
Be brought up to well, I don't the painter heritage even made uncle. It's skeptical first. The first was quite the inspirational success story. Born into a dirt-poor Armenian family in the Byzantine province of Macedonia way back in 811, baby Basil had quite the social ladder to climb. But such a challenge was deemed necessary as he was determined to dodge his destitute destiny. Too bad that he and his family were captured by Bulgarians when he was just 2. Luckily, Basil was able to escape his captors. Just took 23 years. He sought to live out his newfound freedom and fled to Constantinople, which is not yet Istanbul. Possessing incredible strength and an uncanny ability to roll 20s on any and all charisma checks, Basil made leaps and bounds up that social ladder. He began working as a lowly stable boy, got promoted to servant under a relative of the emperor, met a wealthy cougar noblewoman who just threw money at him, dabbled in sweaty, slippery wrestling, and then took on a gig as a bodyguard for Supreme Empire King Emperor guy Michael III.
He went up the ranks.
Now, you'd figure that being a bodyguard to the Emperor would be a great place to coast until retirement, but Basil was just getting started.
I think it would be bad, because if he dies, then you're just fucked.
He managed to gain the utmost trust of the Emperor, even being formally adopted as a son. And taking advantage of this, Emperor Mikey had been convinced by Basil that his own uncle was secretly plotting to take the throne, so he gave Basil permission to address the issue. He did. This false act of loyalty resulted in the Emperor crowning Basil as co-emperor, which was not his best move. You see, Emperor Michael III wasn't very good in his decision-making, which is probably why the public didn't favor him all that much. Basil had one last obstacle in the way of the crown: his newly adoptive dad. That's nothing a quick swipe of a sword can't fix. Basil dropped the "co" in his title and was now the full-fledged emperor of the Byzantine Empire in 867. Despite having zero qualifications for the job, Basil's establishment of the Macedonian dynasty brought the Byzantine Empire into a golden age, with various military victories, large-scale construction, and significant cultural and legal reforms. Problem is, when you get into power through murder, you're always going to be looking over your shoulder for the next person trying to do the same thing to you. Now, I'm not going to question the logistics of it, but during a routine hunting trip in 886, the now elderly Basil managed to get his belt stuck in a deer's antlers. Yeah.
How does this even happen?
I don't know. The animal went wild, as animals tend to do, dragging Basil across the Windows XP default landscape for 16 whole miles. That's at least 2 kilometers. A servant had managed to cut the Emperor free, but the damage was done. Although somehow still alive, the Emperor sustained tremendous injury.
I think like at 5 miles, you would probably die.
The servant, still brandishing his iconic belt-cutting knife, was accused of attempted murder and was sentenced to death. Wait, what? Emperor Basil I died a bit later from his infected wounds. Old Edmund Ironside was King of England for a whole 7 months in 1016 after his rad dad Athelred II died under unknown circumstances. Poor Edmund rose to power at a pretty bad time. Those gosh damn Vikings were gaining a foothold in England, and they needed to
always the Vikings, bro. Dirty Vikings.
Talking to at the very least. Not just any Vikings though, these were Danish Vikings, which were much more formidable, flaky, and flavorful. The 26-year-old king fought back hard against the Viking invaders, throwing whatever English forces he could at them, and saw quite a few victories, granting the king the nickname Ironside for his resilience. But even though he won a few battles, he had yet to win the war. The final conflict, the Battle of Asandin, near modern-day Essex, ended in Danish victory, where there was much rejoicing and many crumbs. Following this English loss, a treaty was signed by King Edmund and Viking King Canute. Canute, being a real canunt, agreed to allow Edmund to continue his reign, but only with the control of Wessex, the heart of Anglo-Saxon England. All English land north of the River Thames was now under Danish control. Now, there was a special stipulation that stated whichever king died first, the other shall inherit the whole country. Well, that sounds like great motivation for assassination plots. Lo and behold, just 1 month later in October of 1016, Edmund Ironside met with a terrible fate. While sitting on his second most important throne, an assailant was assigned to assassinate.
How did he strike it through the toilet bowl and just like did that?
King's ass. Yep, old Ironsides caught a blade between his cheeks when he was at his most vulnerable. According to
that would be just awful.
Some historical sources, an assassin hid under the king's private turlet, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. Edmund, as planned, died of his wounds, granting King Canute full control over England, which he ruled for 2 decades. Being the youngest son of 4 to William the Conqueror, Henry I didn't even have a chance at becoming a Burger King, let alone any kind of respected monarch. When Daddy William logged off the server in 1087, the late king's possessions were divided as such. His eldest son, Robert, inherited Normandy and was made duke. His second son, Richard, got nothing. He was dead, from a hunting accident no
Oh.
less. His third and favorite son, William, inherited the crown of England and was begrudgingly promoted to King William II overnight.
This is he got a big promotion than the other guy.
I say begrudgingly because it is believed that William II would have preferred to inherit Normandy. Oh well, finally,
Bro,
little
you're
Henry
King of
was given
England.
lots of money and a tiny bit of English countryside. But that was immediately yoinked by his now king brother, which never caused any internal resentment in the coming years. Now, some historians believe that King William 2.0 didn't care much for his new majestic role, and as a means of escape from his kingly duties, he frequently went on hunting trips. You can probably see where this is going. During one of these
got
trips,
shot.
William, who wasn't much of an adventurer, took an arrow in the chest. Now,
Damn.
since lungs aren't where arrows are usually stored, William quivered in pain as the arrow knocked the wind out of him, and he drew his last breath shortly after.
Probably leaked my air out of him.
Yeah, hunting trips are lethal to nobility. Of course, some historical speculations suggest that the friendly fire may not have been so friendly. It is possible that the fiasco was a plot concocted by Henry to seize the crown. After hearing of his older brother's demise through his own ear holes, Henry speed ran to the royal treasury and no-clipped to the crown to claim the throne for himself, which certainly didn't help dispel the rumors of foul play. Now, the public wasn't exactly against what had happened, as King William II was a bit of a dick. As the new head honcho, King Henry I immediately began a rollback on many of his late brother's brutal policies, replacing them with much more successful judicial and financial reforms. Being the most
nice.
educated of the four brothers, Henry peacefully ruled England and progressed the kingdom during his reign. Sure, he also invaded Normandy and held his last brother prisoner for life, but that's beside
Just
the
a
point.
little bit.
Henry eventually married a Scottish princess and had himself 2 legitimate children that he loved very much, and dozens of illegitimate little crotch goblins whom he didn't.
Daddy,
Damn.
I want a popsicle.
Now, of course, there has to be a little bit of conflict sprinkled in, so his son and only heir got caught up in the White Ship disaster of 1120,
Uh-oh.
which was a titanic tragedy. The titular White Ship, a vessel transporting around 300 people, including many nobles, struck a big old boulder and sank in the English
God, it's
Channel.
literally
Only
like
one soul
Titanic.
survived, but it wasn't the prince, so who cares? This sent Henry into a depressive spiral, as many of his subjects refused to recognize his daughter as a rightful heir to the crown. A woman ruling? Ugh,
Sexist.
gross, said the English. In his sad state, Henry cheered himself up the only way a king knows how, with a
Oh.
good old-fashioned hunting trip.
Hunting.
But on this
Bro, what's
trip,
up with them and
Henry
hunting?
gorged himself on
Hunting.
lamprey. You know, those weird little wiggly sucking teeth fish? Yeah, apparently those were a delicacy. Despite
Really?
numerous warnings from his physician to cut it out, Henry continued to chew through the little suckers like candy. Your Majesty, that's a bit much, isn't it? King Henry I contracted food poisoning and died from the illness a week later in 1135
Died of
at the
food
age
poisoning?
of 66,
Damn.
bringing an end to the Norman dynasty. King Charles II was an asshole, which is why history remembers him as Charles the Bad. Having been born and raised in France and descending from a line of French
Oh,
rulers,
French, okay,
Charles
that
felt
explains
destined
it.
to be the big baguette in charge one day. And when his mother, who was the only daughter of former King Louis X of France, faded from existence, Charles received his inheritance, the paltry kingdom of Navarre, a pathetic spit of land.
I do like how art style has changed. So like back in the day, this was probably considered like peak art.
Charles received his inheritance, the paltry kingdom of Navarre, a pathetic spit of land in northern modern-day Spain. This sad excuse for a kingdom was an insult to his name, an insult he would never forget. Although now a king at the age of 17, Charles continued to spend his time in France.
You know what? I would actually hold up.
Excuse for a king of Navarre, a
Kingdom of the. This seems like a. Well, I would say. Seems like- I would never want to be king because it feels like everyone would be looking at me like everywhere. But if I had to, I would want a small country king. If I was king, I would want a small kingdom like this, or like Liechtenstein, or the Vatican, or that place. Oh, like a city's worth of kingdom where I could just say stuff and be like, "Hey, taxes they're down by 5%," and boom, taxes are now at like 10%. You guys hear that? I'll mute reference if you get that. But yeah, I would, because I feel like I would be like a decent, not a good one, like one that would be like, hey, this king he's not like actively throwing people in prison for no reason, so I guess he's good. I would be like that kind of king,
pathetic spit of land in northern modern-day Spain. This sad excuse
which is probably why I'm not king.
for a kingdom was an insult to his name, an insult he would never forget. Although now a king at the age of
Never.
17, Charles continued to spend his time in France, hoping to build enough influence to gain recognition for his claim to the crown. But he wasn't successful. He would spend the next several decades double-crossing, manipulating, and backstabbing his way through life, pitting England and France against each other during the 100 Years' War.
He started the 100 Years' War?
Deceived, murdered, and betrayed for the sake of gaining power. He eventually helped spark a revolution in France. No, not the
She's letting those out, man.
French Revolution. That's not for a while. This uprising was the Jacquerie, a peasant rebellion in 1358 against French nobles. Charles led a suppressive force against the peasants to appear to be the savior of France, but everyone saw right through the ruse. After that publicity stunt, Charles lost almost all political support in France and had to turn to England for help. He ended up pleading with English King Dude Guy Edward III to invade the weakened
Crazy beard, my guy.
France and divide the spoils between them, but King Edward was all, no. The king had zero trust for
No.
Charles and refused the offer, eventually making peace with France. For now. A few years later, Charles was back on his bullshit, throwing himself in wars and declaring loyalty to both
Game
sides in
Grumps.
exchange for gaining land and power. He would just favor whichever side was winning. He did get involved in the Spanish Wars between 1365 and 1368, but faked his own kidnapping in order to avoid participating in battle. And that stunt was instantly recognized as cowardice, making Charles a laughingstock of Western Europe. Finally, in 1378, the annoying little fly that was Charlie II was finally swatted. His tiny kingdom was invaded by Spanish forces and promptly wiped out. Charles sought refuge in France and was forced to surrender in shame. Although he retained his crown, he had no power whatsoever. 9 years later, in 1387, Charles the Bad fell ill and was pretty much immobile. His doctor prescribed that his body be wrapped in alcohol-soaked linen sheets, and these sheets were sewn around his body each night to promote any healing. Well, one night when finishing
know
up
how
her
that
king
would
sewing duties, a maid had no scissors to cut the last thread of the linen. There were no blades to be found that could finish the job. So, what do you think she did?
Used her mouth? Yeah.
Time's up. The correct answer was B. In a moment of completely terrible
you
judgment,
what?
the young maid resorted to using an open flame candle to melt the thread off.
And then it. Oh.
Charles II, who wanted to be a French king so bad,
What is this logic? What is that dog? That dog is hurt. That dog had ears? That dog was just watching, bro. Just watching him get burned alive.
was promptly flambéed in his bed as the maid panicked and fled.
Henry II.
Henry II of France was a decent king between the years of 1547 up until his death in 1559. Nothing spectacular, but decent. He's remembered as an advocate for keeping the Catholic faith in France and suppressing them smelly Protestants. He had quite a few either burned at the stake for heresy or had their tongues cut out so they couldn't talk trash about Catholicism. Perhaps his bigger claim to fame, though, was his participation in ending the Italian Wars, which waged across 65 years. With the signing of the Treaty of Cato Cambyses, the deadly wars were finally at an end, and there was much rejoicing. One particular event of celebration was conducted by our subject, King Henry II. To commemorate the end of the wars, as well as his daughter's marriage to King Philip II of Spain, Wars, as well as his daughter's marriage to King Philip II of Spain,
Those Spanish, am I right? Those Spaniards.
Henry held a jousting tournament. You know, that silly
don't make
medieval
it
sport
different.
where two men hold long wooden poles on horseback and just charge at each other trying to knock the other off. Yeah, I don't get it either, but hey, it's way more entertaining than baseball. Anyway, King Henry II
sounds
held the
fun.
tournament on June 30th, 1559 and took it
Probably
upon himself
hurts, like, it hurts a lot, probably. You get
to
knocked off or when you
participate
get hit.
as a challenger. Perhaps the last bad decision of his life. Set against his own captain of the King's Guard, the two set off to consensually jab their long sticks into each other. With the ASMR pleasures of a wooden crunch, the captain's lance hit its target and shattered upon impact, as they're designed to do. Problem was, some of the splintered wood decided to nuzzle itself right into the king's eyeball for warmth. my god, oh my god, okay, I'm sorry, you're fine, you're okay. Royal surgeons raced to the king's aid, but were unable to treat the wound.
Is she
He's
just bleeding?
gonna be okay, right, Doc? Tough to say. Problem seems to be this big old piece of wood here. I highly recommend he rest up for a few days and we'll see what happens. Are you gonna remove the wood? I'm sorry, I was unaware that you were the royal surgeon. The medics failed to properly treat the king's wounds, which only got worse over the next few days, leading to severe infection. I may have been wrong. King Henry II splintered off from this world on June 10th, 1559. What a bunch of silly stuff, right? I have more ridiculous royal deaths on the list.
Okay, guys, that's going to be the end of this video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. See you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.